Welcome, viewers, to another fireside chat of Jump Board Consultancy, JBC as we call it. JBC, in its pursuit to enable veterans for a seamless transitioning to corporate world, conducts series of fireside chats with veterans who have successfully transitioned into corporate careers or entrepreneurships, primarily to understand their transition journey. This enables veterans to understand the approximate do's and don'ts to chalk out a customized transition journey for themselves. We also interact with HR and other business leaders who have hired and managed military veterans primarily to get insights and advice for transition, as also to understand about the veterans, their employability in their respective industry. JBC was launched on 27th of May this year, and till now, we have conducted 4 major webinars, 5 fireside chats, and 29 individual focus sessions. We've also launched our battleship program. We call it Battle Readiness Program, BRP, for transitioning veterans from 4th July 21, and it spans over 4 weeks. It is in progress as of now. This evening, we have an awesome guest to speak to. He's a naval veteran, Commander Raja Narayan Swamy. Raja is popularly called. He's an accomplished naval veteran. To his credit, he is an alumni of IIT Delhi, IIM Indore, and Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management. From Indian Navy, he has participated in Operation Kargil and Operation Parakar. And for his excellence in his professional career, he was awarded Chief of Naval Staff's commendation, and CNC's commendation speaks volumes. Commander Raja's naval career is checkered with several interesting assignments and strategic projects, like the nuclear submarine of India. This program, where he worked with DRDO and the industry to design the famous sonar and the underwater sensors for our nuclear submarine. He was also part of the commissioning team of a strategic underwater signature measurement facility of Goa for measurement of magnetic and acoustic signatures of our ships and submarines, where he partnered with CDAC Trivandrum. After hanging up his whites, or as they call it, dropping his anchor in August 2015, Commander Raja embarked on his new journey as a new set of commander, new style of commander, a corporate leader, and he has had a very successful stint with Amazon, straddling across different businesses such as the e-commerce and the exciting artificial intelligence and machine learning domains, where he has been part of the Alexa and Amazon robotic teams. His team is heavily invested in the state-of-art technologies and cutting-edge innovations that are emerging in the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Apart from his professional interest, Raja is also very passionate about training, teaching, mentoring, and interacting with the youth. So can imagine the vibrancy of the evening today. Let's all enjoy with him. He interacts very frequently with the students of business schools to talk about the military leadership, learnings from us to the corporate world. In true sense, a corporate leader from military. He also actively assists military officers trying to transition into the corporates. I'm so glad you're here, Raja. Sincere compliments and a set of huge gratitudes for you to have joined us and graced this occasion. It's time for me to shoot questions for you, and it's time for veterans to start imbibing every bit of detail that Raja has to offer. The first question that I have you, Raja, is simply tell us about your journey in defense and your move to the corporate world. Over to you.
First of all, thank you so much for and to you and to Abhishek for having me.
You
I
have
think uh, the kind
you
of
have a
work that
slight
you
bit
are
of a slight scraggy in the voice, please.
going to try. So let me know if this is better because no,
Yeah. You can
just
be a little soft and continue.
okay.
Yeah,
No,
better,
I
great.
was just saying, I was just thanking you for the opportunity that you've given me. And, when Abhishek reached out to me, and I know him from his Amazon days, and he spoke to me about Jumboard and the kind of work you intend to do for transitioning veterans, I couldn't have said no to him. And let me first start off by wishing this team here all the very best for their transition journey. It's been close to 6 years since I transitioned, and just seems like yesterday. And with so many support systems in place and institutions like yours, I think things are going to only get better. Before I actually take that question, sir, just a couple of disclaimers to begin with. I'm no expert. A lot of people here probably are senior to me. They have seen more service than me. It's just that I happen to transition in time and space before most of you. And therefore, whatever I'm going to share with you is a perspective, a point of view. It's anything but the whole truth. So take it with a pinch of salt. There will be portions of what I perhaps may say which you would find unconvincing, unpalatable, or downright unacceptable. But that's a point of view. And the idea is for us to not try and convince each other, but for you to be able to pick up the threads of what I'm going to say. And if it works for you, fantastic. So that's the spirit with which I intend to carry on with this conversation. This is a fairly small group, so we'll try and keep this fluid and simple. Okay, let me just jump into the my journey in the defense services and my own transition to the corporate world. I was born and brought up in Bihar, and I am the first in my family to join the defense forces. I did my high school in Chennai when my father got transferred to Chennai. He worked for the Reserve Bank of India, and I come from a family of bankers and government servants. Like everybody else in the late 80s, 90s, I went for IIT coaching. And like most of us, I discovered that I wasn't cut out for all that focused hard work and single minded pursuit. So defense was nowhere actually in the horizon. I was good with studies. And in Chennai, every second guy is a rank holder. So I grew up in a milieu where academics and education was considered most important. So short of IIT, there was pretty much nothing that could have made my parents proud. So the only way for me to sort of match that would have been to try and do something different, and that's how I ended up joining the Navy. I had absolutely no clue of what lay in store. I just spoke to one of my father's security officers in his office. That's all that my background in service was, and that's the power of serendipity and destiny, as they call it. Physically, I wasn't very active. I was not a big sportsman or anything. But once I went to the academy and I discovered that there is a bunch of folks from RIMC, Sainik schools, there is this whole community who really, really struggled for years to get there. That's when I kind of realized the worth of what I had got into. And from there, there was no looking back. So slowly things sort of started looking up, and from an average performance at the academy, I stood 7th out of 92 in the sea training course on board INS Tir. And that sort of, put the spotlight on me in many ways as, hey, here is a guy who's capable. Professionally, a fantastic journey, exciting stints at sea, corvettes, missile boats, destroyers, tankers, uh, fantastic 12 years spent at sea. I did tenures in repair yards, R&D, as you mentioned. I had an opportunity to work with industry, DRDO, trial agencies, OEMs, a bunch of stuff I managed to do in my service career. Uh, Looking back, what I realized is that my career was checkered with a number of difference. Of course, I didn't recognize it at that point, but what I discover I have done well is to try and tailor and stitch them to form a narrative that made a lot of sense for the corporate sector. And if you have to take away one, lesson from today's session, it would be for you to, work on that narrative and that story that is uniquely yours. Even today, when I talk to my course mates or when you ask them about me, they will remember me as this average guy who was pretty much okay with everything, but nothing really, excellent or outstanding. But what I look back as what I did well is that I consistently grabbed opportunities that were aligned with my skill sets. I was okay with writing and communication, so I went on to become the editor in chief for the Naval Academy magazine that's called Ahoy. My stint with DRDO came right after my MTech. The idea of working with DRDO, going to a lab and getting posted there, that wasn't exactly mainstream, and that too in project stage, it would have put the normal guy away from the mainstream Navy. But I took that head on, and that opened my opportunity for the ATVP program, the nuclear submarine bit that Sir just mentioned. So the ability to work with leading scientists and industry exposure, and then subsequently in my last sea time, I worked with Italian OEMs. Uh, it was an exposure far more than the usual MRO thing at sea. So as somebody who's transitioned, or you people are transitioning, so one of the most important things that you need to do is to build your narrative, the ability to put together an interesting story and weave together portions of your career so that they logically sort of culminate in what you want to do going forward. And that will be your unique story, and that is what will put you apart from the assembly line approach most of them take in the transition journey. I quit service, like Sir brought out, in the August of 2015. The seeds had been sown in 2012 when I was working with the industry and DRDO. You see, what happens is, I'm a cadet entry officer, right? And all of us who join the service after school are engineered to feel like the center of the world. It's always us versus them, the civilians, and we are tutored to feel and behave smarter than the rest of the world. Now, what this DRDO stint did is it helped me discover that there's an alternative reality that existed outside. And having worked with them closely, I found a newfound respect for them. It helped me confront my own mental blocks, and it helped me open my mind to the fact that it was a different world outside. Not good, not bad, but just different. And if I had to make that successful transition, I had to sort of accept it for whatever it was worth. And that's pretty much the story. I left in August of 2015, a month after I became eligible for pension, while everybody else was waiting for that pay commission in January 2016. Everybody who was somebody told me that, hey, hang on for 5 more months and you will get the benefits of the pay commission. But I was very clear that I wanted to get out while the fire in my belly was still burning. And looking back, I am very happy I decided to leave, because if I had hung around any longer, the stagnation would have got to me at some point, and I would have become a vegetable. So that's the second piece of advice. If you've already decided to transition, the best time is now. Leave when the fire is still alive and kicking in you. A little bit about I am Indore, and I'll sort of stop there. I'll not ramble anymore. I am Indore. I landed up about 8 months prior to the transition as part of the DGR course, and this was a batch of only about 17 people, as against normally the 50 or 60 that's the current norm. And again, these were people with completely different backgrounds, qualifications, arms, and attitudes. Now, that's one thing I've observed about us. We tend to paint ourselves in a single color across the spectrum, but the fact is that there is so much variability between us, uh, whether in terms of work cultures, milieus, experience profiles. The services themselves are very different, and even within each service, there is a lot of variability. So I immersed myself into learning at that institute. I passed with straight A's. I topped that course, and like I said, I passed with straight A's on all of the subjects, and that's something that nobody had achieved before me. And that's a point that Director I am Indore made it a point to, make mention when we were leaving. I had 3 offers when I was leaving service. 31st August was my last day in uniform. By 19th of August, I had 3 offers. One was from Amazon, one more in a very, very advanced stage of negotiations from a company called DevSys, which was basically they deal in Israeli defense equipment, and there was one more Chennai-based defense company. So that's my overall corporate and transition story, sir. Sir, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
What a vibrant story, Raja. The dynamism that you've exhibited is far too huge for an average officer like me to imbibe. You see, the kind of different variability you included is tremendous. I think almost all sectors, all industries you touched while in service, and you took a very conscious decision, narrowing down your decision, and then finally deciding to quit. And what amazes me is that before quitting, you had three options in your hand. Majority of us quit are outside on the square and looking where to go. So that's where your expertise would come in. Abhishek, why don't you add your Amazon experience with what Raja has gone through? An amazing story.
I think Raja sir has covered it well. He's been very humble that he was a very average guy, but I have interacted with him. He is nothing less than extraordinary, and I salute to his means I say experience and humility. However, just for a lighter note, I can say that me and Jeevan sir are related to you somewhere because both of us has conducted leadership sessions for RBI College Chennai as part of Army earlier. Over to you, Jeevan sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll straightway come to the next question. What would be your suggestions to our military veterans now transiting or planning to transition from defense to the civil?
Awesome. No, thank you for that question, sir. And I think in that is the core of the conversation we are having today. I think I spoke about the narrative piece. I think to me that is the most important. Each of us have a unique career profile, uh, and when we are transitioning, it is super important that we are able to chronologically sequence it and build that narrative which is uniquely yours, and that is what will be your differentiating factor from everybody else. So that's the first piece of advice that I want to give the transitioning veterans. As a community, as a uniformed group, we are conditioned to find great comfort in groups. We have affinity to our own ilk and perhaps more than what the others have. But I want to state this most unequivocally, that this is a solo journey. The transition is a personal journey that you and your family members take. And while it's all nice to say that all of us are in uniform and we are part of this big clan, each of us, and it's a fact that we all have our unique situations and circumstances: aged parents, investment, children education priorities, outlook, location constraints, financial situations, working spouse, loans, and finally your vision of a transition lifestyle. I think each of us look at it very, very differently. Some of us want it to be peaceful, some of us are okay to rough it out. What works for your course mates perhaps may not be applicable for you. So I think that is the first point, that we need to recognize that this is your transition, and hashtag fly solo is the name of the game. I think what we need to do is to be able to visualize the lifestyle that you want to choose for yourself and what works best for your family. I think it's a conversation that is best had with the spouse, and so if the children are grown up with them, they are the ones who are most impacted by the transition, and we don't consult them enough. So that's the second piece apart from the narrative bit. The third thing is, the more flexible you are, the more opportunities will open up. And by flexibility, I don't mean underselling yourself. I mean willingness to grab opportunities that perhaps may not come in a quote unquote ideal location. For instance, there are enough jobs, and I want to tell each one of you who's on this call that there are enough jobs out there, whether it's a good season, bad season, ye sab kahaniyan hain. I think there are enough skill sets in each one of us. So therefore, you don't need to adjust the foot for the shoe. So the key for you is to be able to be as flexible in terms of location, and try and grab opportunities which perhaps others may not be willing to go there. The corollary to this is, like I said, we as a community are very inward looking, and we tend to reinforce some of the stereotypes that abound around us. I always say this to fellow veterans, that one blind man cannot lead the other. So we need to be talking a lot more to folks outside of your current network. Fresh ideas, perspective. If some of you, one of you mentioned that you're going to IIM Indore, please make it a point to interact with the executive PGP guys, PGP folks, faculty who take classes, not just your own community. What happens is, when service officers interact among each other, we tend to reinforce our own belief systems, as a community. Corporate world में बहुत मुश्किल है, यार admin security ठीक है. Talk to fresh faces, new perspectives will come. The next bit is to invest in fresh learning. Please be mindful that all your experiences service will take you to that interview table, not more. So therefore, the key is for you to soak up learning like a sponge. I went to IIM Indore with the sole purpose of learning. Now, and that's where that variability, comes in. Most of us treat the DGR course like a stamp or a thappa of some kind for a job. It doesn't work like that. For short service officers, whenever they speak to me, I strongly urge them to invest in a tier 1 B school, 1 year course of some kind if they have the time or the means. Maybe take a crack at GMAT and invest them in a full 1 year learning. And there are scholarships available because they have about good 18 to 20 years of work life ahead of us, and it will set them up for a long time, full-time career. Of course, in case you are not able to take that, then of course there are the shorter courses or the DGR courses, and each of them, come with their own value. At the same time, I must also warn all of us against accumulating random certifications and courses just for putting on LinkedIn or the CV. Now the recruiters are too smart. Yeah, the moment you do a 1 month course from IIM Ahmedabad and pitch yourself as an IIM Ahmedabad alumnus, that person knows that you're not the IIMA alumni. So every learning counts. Everything that you learn from a knowledge imbibing perspective definitely counts. It helps shape your idea and confidence. But trust me when I say this, the job that you will get will not come for the certifications. It will not come for the DGR course that you have done or the institute from where you have done, but it will only come based on how you are able to communicate and articulate your experience profile on an interview table in a language that the interviewer understands in a convincing manner. That is the key. Your ability to put your narrative in front of the interviewer in a manner that he understands and how he sees it correlated with the job profile. Do not chase buzzwords. I see a lot of veterans, jumping to do some course in data analytics, cloud computing, some fancy stuff for which they have no professional experience to back up. Do not expect folks to give you a job if all you have is a 6 month or a 1 year course behind you and no real world experience in this domain. Most of us have 10, 15, 20 years plus in the service. You will get a job only for what you have delivered in uniform in terms of core professional skills. And how you translate it for the interviewer is the key. Okay, this is going to be a little long, so I'm going on and on. A related point that we keep making on social media, and which I have a huge problem, is this bit about soft skills. We keep saying tom-tomming about leadership, team management, morale, motivation, communication skills, and that Fauji's come with all of this. Please remember, you are making a lateral entry into the corporate sector where your contemporaries are folks going to be with 10 to 15 years of work experience. And all of these soft skills are given at these levels. The folks who will be your peers will be people who managed production, say in a Tata Motors for 8 to 10 years, or managed supply chain for Coca-Cola or a Hindustan Unilever. And they have a lot of business acumen and value. So while soft skills will establish you in the workplace and they will enhance value, soft skill alone will not get you a job. The job will come with hardcore professional skills and the organizational fit. You will be only hired if your core fit is great, right? Some of the things that we need to upskill on, and we do not have that level of knowledge about these. One is the fact that performance metrics, the outside world moves with numbers. Everything is measured and everything has a cost. Now, in the Forge, we take resources for granted in some sense because it is given to you, and mission first seems to be the mantra there. But here, every penny that the business gives you has to be accounted for with a business case. So your ability to understand money, savings for the org, value proposition that your recommendations will bring, how you are able to articulate, those are very important. You will be handling hiring, you will be measuring efficiency and throughput. Everything will run around numbers. I'll give you a small example in Amazon, right? And Abhishek will resonate with it. Now, if I have 50 pack stations, which which has got each of them has an operator who's packing stuff for the orders that customers have, asked for shipping. Amazon measures the rate at which a small box is packed, a medium box is packed, a large box is packed. How much time does it take to actually travel from place A to place B on the conveyor? And the number of people that are positioned are dependent on that pack rate. Every metric is measured. Similarly, when the inventory comes in, you've got 6 hours to put it in the store it away in the locations. So they will exactly calculate what is the store rate. We are not used to that kind of numeric based, data based management in the service. So that's the first thing that we need to sort of upskill on. The second thing is you need to go beyond stating the obvious. What happens in the service is beyond a certain level. No, summing up what's the general opinion in the room, it'll fetch you some brownie points, but not in the corporate world. You will have to, suppose you are putting up a proposal, or if you're reviewing a proposal, you will have to go beyond the obvious and come up with unique insights and suggestions. Copy paste is not going to hold you in good stead. Neither is looking backward, much forward. Some of these we do it subconsciously, and I'm calling this out because these are extremely important behaviors for us to acknowledge and be aware that these could be our undoings. Third thing, we see ourselves as jack of all trades. The outside world respects vertical specialists. So many times I see a resume which says, and probably from a major or a lieutenant colonel or a wing commander, which says, I'm an operations guy. I've been part of infrastructure projects. I've handled programs. I've worked with OEMs, but I can also do HR. And which is a fact. In service, we are interchangeable assets and we are trained for everything. But you are confusing the recruiter. You need to make those choices as to what is your best fit, and you need to align your profile with the field where you want to make that entry. And that resume for that role should sort of play down the other stories and focus on the main story, right? A related point is this bit about cost centers and profit centers, which I'm sure most of you have heard. So long as you are part of the cost center, which is basically spending money on behalf of the business, which doesn't bring in. So whether it's a security loss prevention, whether it's facilities or any such Adam kind of roles, which don't make money for the business, you will continue to be a peripheral to the main organization. And the number of such roles will be fairly limited. If you're part of a profit center, which makes money for the business, you will, the opportunities are much more there, but the flip side is it's going to be that much more demanding and that much more strenuous. So you need to be aware of these nuances, and it has to be aligned with your career aspirations. As middle level managers in the Forge, most of us are executors, and we have a decision that's taken by somebody senior, and apart from thinking on our feet for some tactical decisions, most of the time we are fairly clear what needs to be done, at least at a middle management level. In the corporate world, the buck will stop with you. Things may not be very clear, may not be unambiguous. Your ability to embrace ambiguity and figure out stuff along the way as you proceed is a skill worth its weight in gold. You have to get comfortable with the idea of discomfort. There will always be stuff that you don't know. Typically what happens in Forges, हमने 2-3 साल एक appointment कर लिया, so you are generally aware of what's happening and you're not surprised. After 6 years, even today, I feel insecure at some of the way things work in Amazon. That's a very alien feeling for a Forgy, that you're constantly sort of looking around कि यार मुझे तो ये आता नहीं है, 6 साल हो गए. But you have to get comfortable with that idea. I did speak about numerical ability and ability to look into data and make sense out of it. That's extremely important. Finally, and I'm going to stop with this, open-ended networking is not going to help you. Please do not send your CVs to random HRs, recruiters. Sir, is there any opening? Can you look at my resume and suggest changes? It doesn't help, because not just because we don't have the time and bandwidth, because we do not have the visibility as well. It's like asking somebody, if I send it to Colonel Saxena and say, hey, you have any openings in the army? You're going to say, okay, please look up the army website. So you need to do your homework go with specific roles, go with specific requests to people, and then perhaps they will be able to take it forward. I'm going to pause here and maybe listen to what else you guys want to know.
Thank you so much. This is plethora of suggestions that have come across the table, and I think our viewers here on Facebook, on YouTube, etc., will have to rewind for a while, look into for each minor detail that you shared, and they are wonderful. Though we say we all live in VUCA environment, but actually the VUCA hits us the moment you're outside in the environment. And you very rightly pointed. And to that end, Abhishek and all of us are trying to focus all of them towards executables before you get hired, and thereafter be the leader in your own perspective and grow. And if that can be imbibed, I'm sure things would fall in place. Abhishek, please add on and color it with your richness.
Yes, sir. Two things with what I picked up from Raja sir's conversation is, first is during his experience with DRDO, he learned a lot about outside world. He grew a lot of respect for the outside world, and he realized what all he needs to upskill himself or unlearn or relearn. So one thing which, if someone has read that book of Robert Kiyosaki, he says you are the 20% of 5 friends you have. So while you are planning to transition, you're thinking that you want to move on, you need to find 5 people from corporate. I'm not saying you leave your 4G friends and Air Force friends, but find 5 people whom you start spending more and more time with, so that you understand what you lack, what you need to build on, and what you need to add on. Second thing I want to add is the beauty of conversations. Generally, because we have been dealing with our NCOs, JCOs, and our staff, we have been a habit of speaking more and listening less. But the beauty of conversation is if you spend time, you put in some effort, you can gain so much of knowledge which is there in the outside world. So when you speak to a person, how you elicit questions which will elicit him to give more and more detailed story about the outside world or the job function or whatever you need to pick up. So use that beauty of conversations to gain like a sponge more and more. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Mr.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. What you said is wonderful. This word sponge, I think, aptly suits our transition period. You keep absorbing nichodo inside and again bring it dry outside, and keep repeating the process till you actually master one specific, very narrow skill where you are the master. And if you
So
can do it,
you will never master, sir. I'm saying you will never master being a sponge. You should always be a sponge. It is always help you till whatever age or maturity you think you become.
yes.
The day you think I'm a master,
Yeah.
that is the first day of your downfall.
Yeah.
But what Raja said very clearly that instead of collecting certificates, you collect the knowledge.
Knowledge, absolutely.
And the moment that you go for an interaction, it is visible. I know of a lady, she did engineering from a very normal college in southern Maharashtra. And the day she came out of this and she went for the first interview and picked up by Boeing. A girl from a rural area from Punjab goes to Maharashtra and gets picked up. Now, what is it that made this happen? It's not that engineering college. It's not that village. It's what she's been absorbing. And when time came, she delivered an interview. We, with our rich experience of 5 years to 20 years, spends fabulous. HR skills, core skills makes the combo an excellent burger. And I'm sure we can do that. We have the skills, we have the dedication, and we can. Let's go to the third question. And Raja, we'll take more and use our sponge more on this. What are some learnings and what are those certain things that veterans should unlearn when moving to the civil streets?
And this is the more important part, sir. And what I have done is that there are veterans who reach out to me earlier as well. So I put this down in a structured framework so that people are able to sort of go through. So allow me to kind of quickly share my screen, and there are only about 3 slides, so I'm not going to overload you with too much of data. Do let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. let's just go one by one. I will. So the first unlearning is you need to discover an identity that is shown of your uniform and shown of your rank. What you bring to the table as an individual, uh, discover that aspect and get used to being respected for that aspect. The corollary to this is typically service mein humko kya hota hai, the number of years that you spend in the service is a good proxy for your competence. Okay, he's 30 years in service, so perhaps he must be a lot experienced and not more competent. It's not so in the corporate world. You will have colleagues who are younger than you. You will have bosses with less experience in number of years, and every time we throw phrases like when I was Colonel GS, or when I was in Wellington, or when I was commanding INS Delhi, it kind of, it's a downer. So what you bring to the organization now in terms of value, it what matters. The service, like I said earlier, brought you to that interview table, and all those learnings you need to transition. But keeping on talking about it or referring to your rank or uniform is really not something that's very appreciated. Although you will get respect for it, but that's not a cool thing to do. The other thing is, in the corporate world, you are as good as your last performance appraisal. In the service, and I can say this for the Navy, because once you do well in your basic courses, then the kind of appointments that you get happen to be that much more better. And then that high continues so long as something goes drastically wrong. So if you're good, you kind of keep getting some kind of perpetual returns. You are as good as your last appraisal, or as in Amazon, we say you are as good as your last Diwali peak. I know people who delivered 3 Diwali peaks in great Diwali peak. I mean Diwali sales in with great success, and the fourth one they went down, and that was the end of their tenure in the organization. So you have to be geared up for continuously performing again and again and again. Okay, this is a little tricky. Uh, you know, uh, some of us indulge in this, and I'm going to not talk too much about it because I know the audience is mature here. So, smart one-liners which work very well in Forge, most do not understand it outside. So, there's no point even trying this. Again, I know so and so, or bringing back everything to yourself as an example. These are things that are best avoided, and I'm calling this out more from a behavioral perspective, not just for your transition, but even for your post transition corporate life. These are things that you need to keep in mind. Next, again, as service officers, we are wired to seek seniors approval, and written directives for everything. uh, Corporate mein, there's nothing like this. You just got to do it, and do it to the best of your ability. You don't have the luxury of looking over your shoulder. At best, you are allowed to call out the risks and challenges and just go ahead and execute it. uh, okay, how we handle time, this is a tricky one. We tend to overdo it. Yeah, I had this morning meeting. I'll give you an example. I had this morning meeting at 10:30, and I used to land there at 10:25. And there will be people who will be trickling in by say 10:35 or 10:40, and then we used to do the meeting. And one day, the typical Fauji in me got a little wild, and we said, "Yeah, come on! If the meeting is at 10:30, you guys have to be here at 10:30." And immediately there were questions like, what are we achieving in this meeting? Is there enough value? So the learning there was, uh, you have to be a little flexible. What you achieve out of that particular meeting is the key, and not that everybody lands up at 10:30 sharp. The the fact is, we overdo it. I mean, even in the service, calls are to be attended on time, and nobody appreciates or expects you to be there 2 minutes or 5 minutes before. Okay, this is again, by the nature of our uniform, we are taught to be chivalrous to women. Outside the whole gender diversity thing, the whole D&I, diversity and inclusion bit, is very, very strong. So please treat them business like, cordial, as co-workers. I'm going to stop with that. I think this is fairly self explanatory. Finally, I think we are all trained in the forces to unconditionally obey. In the corporate world, uh, every senior corporate leader looks at subordinates who will have the courage of conviction to speak their mind. Corporates are open to suggestions which are against the grain. Some welcome it, provided they are expressed correctly in the right manner with supporting data. Merely challenging a superior or questioning somebody's decision is not taken as indiscipline or insubordination. A related thing to this is it's super important that you discuss with your boss what are your key deliverables, what are your performance management system, what is going to be your KRA, because your increments and your performance linked bonuses, they are invariably tied up with your KRAs. And if you don't have these conversations, it will give the impression that you perhaps are not as serious. So that's the other thing. Finally, what Abhishek just called out, we need to be in the active listening mode. In the service, we are used to guide a bunch of willing subordinates towards a task completion. Out here, it's more about collaborative leadership. It's more about buy-in. They need to invest into the decision that you are taking. And therefore, it calls for a lot more active listening. It calls for a group-based decision making. And that's a skill that we will have to sort of imbibe along the way. You will always feel smarter, yeah. There is no question about it. You will find people who do not take care of their physical appearance, who probably aren't as fit as you are, who don't carry themselves as well. But make sure that you don't let this feeling get ahead of yourself. You will always feel smarter. Give respect for each, the value proposition that each individual brings to the table, and make sure you call it out so that the team members feel valued. uh, don't call them out for their bearing, etc. Those are not things that is expected from them in any case. This is a little bit about the community part, that फौज में क्या होता है कि the families interact with each other. Off working hours, we engage with each other as a community. Out here, people respect their space and privacy. Engagement beyond work hours is more an exception. So do not probe. Like in the Navy, we had divisional system, and we used to exactly know कि कौन से sailor का किधर dispute चल रहा है, land dispute, या whose father is not keeping well. Out here, that is not the norm. If they decide to share it with you, well and good, and you offer solutions. But people respect their space and privacy, and you need to be mindful of that. Finally, things aren't always as transparent. You don't know which side is the enemy. So don't take things at face value. Level of transparency will always be limited. Don't trust anybody and everybody 100%. Be guarded, at least till the time you understand the ecosystem. And nobody is a friend, nobody is an enemy. They're all professional colleagues. Those are some of the things that I had, which was here. Just a couple of small points more before I wind up. One is the first interface to the organization is always a junior recruiter, and it may be true also for your interviewer. Somebody who's interviewing maybe hardly 5, 6, 8 years of experience. Now, somebody like us who is 20 plus years of work ex, we have a tendency like ये बच्चा है यार, ये मेरे को क्या पूछेगा और इसको क्या पता है. He is the gateway to the organization. So therefore, don't allow that feeling. And I know officers who've been through interviews and come out and said that, yeah, that chap was a kid. He had no clue what to ask me. And obviously they didn't make it. So don't allow yourself to get sort of diverted by some of these small considerations. The recruiter may not have a say in your selection, but he has a great understanding of the role. He has a great understanding of the work culture, and he or she will be a great resource for you to understand what is the overall profile, and you must leverage that. He is like your buddy in the whole interview process. I'll pause with that, sir.
Sir, you are speaking on mute, Jeevan sir.
Apologies. In order to give more clarity to Raja, I wanted to be on the low. Fine. Once again, a full basket of vision on unlearning is on the table. Thank you, Raja, for this wonderful exposition. Rank versus knowledge always is not a corollary. It goes with actually the knowledge. And people outside, a professor in very, very simple, humble kurta pajama may be a genius. So we need to analyze that. And what you said, that outside it's more of professionalism. If you're professional, you're done. You got it. And thereafter, rest of your personality you can keep building on. But if the profession is not right, then I say I'm, Don Bosco, possibly not. That doesn't work. So we really have to be professional. And thank you so much for bringing this out. I have now the last question coming on the table for you, Raja. Again, a very concerned and practical question for all of us. Why should veterans look at e-commerce industry as a career?
Okay. That's again very close to my heart. So the question. So we've been just through the second wave of Corona, and every single industry has taken a hit except e-commerce. Just in the Q4 of 2020, e-commerce has seen a 36% jump, while every other industry is either flattening or going down. Just to give you a perspective, e-commerce, e-retail is less than 7 or 6% of the overall retail in this country today. So you can see the upward opportunities that exist. So the first thing is it's an expanding industry. Online retail is only a fraction of the overall market size, and it's poised to grow. There are heavy investments coming. So you've got not just Amazon and the Flipkarts of the world, you've got Reliance coming, you've got Tata Click entering. There are multiple players who are, checking out this space. And I'm not saying, when I say e-commerce, I'm not just talking about marketplaces, travel, make my trip or book my show or any such thing. You've got Udan, which is a B2B kind of a setup. There are a number of B2B players in that space, number of startups. So this is an emerging space. And just to give you a perspective, when I joined Amazon in 2015, the Amazon was at the at the phase where the takeoff was happening. And if the share value was anything to go by, Amazon shares were about $450 in 2015. And Abhishek is smiling as I say this. Today, Amazon shares are $3,500. So it's an 8x jump.
3,700 as from yesterday night.
There you go. There you go. So I have sort of ridden that wave. And there are many such waves. There are many such tsunamis that are waiting to occur in this space. That's one. From a work understanding and profile perspective, warehousing is extremely logical and it's very, very structured. And Abhishek has been there and I have been there as well. As long as you can be feet on the ground, you can look around you and apply your mind logically on the floor, you are good to go. There are a number of visual indicators. It's a very, very personality centric leadership, just like in service. So as a site leader or an inbound manager or an outbound manager, all you basically need to do is rally a group of people and channelize their energies to meet certain professional and performance metrics. And I think that's a very, very comfortable and direct fit. The most important thing, much of the workforce is semi-skilled or unskilled. And you have a bunch of young managers who look up to you and your experience, and you will be able to mold their energies to, drive performance. So it's super, exciting in that sense. Now, compared to the corporate world, which now I am a part of, where you have a bunch of all white collar folks, everybody is an engineer or everybody is a software development, manager. Managing a white collar workforce in the corporate milieu calls for a little more nuance and a little more, set of skills, which a veteran straight away transitioning out may find it a little tricky. That is not to say that that's not possible, but it offers a shallow entry into the swimming pool, as to speak. You find your feet on the ground, you are able to move things, you can see the outcomes. So all in all, I think fantastic opportunities. And I want to, just stop with marketing Amazon one last time. Amazon has a very, very dedicated military veteran hiring program in place. And the beauty of that program is we don't expect the candidates to find roles for themselves. We interview that pool of candidates, and based on their skill sets and profiles, we assign them to different businesses. So we say, okay, somebody who's done a lot of projects and programs, we try and make a fit for them. There is a proper structured onboarding process. But here's the thing. For all the talk of military friendly companies and Wells Fargo or Amazon or maybe some others, even Goldman Sachs or even now JP Morgan, etc., uh, companies don't operate for charity. They will pick you up because somebody before you has done well from your community, and therefore they are the ambassadors of the kind of talent you bring, and this whole thing will continue till that happens. I hope that made sense.
Yep. Thank you so much. So e-commerce is the buzzword, and we got to go with it. What I really liked was when you said personality-centric leadership. And it is something like we leading a platoon in the forest and getting two militants. No, it's for you to handle and kill or get killed. No, it's something like that. I'm sure we can do it. I'll request Abhishek, please add on value to this e-commerce and the overall interview, as you have been through a similar experience for all these years. And both of you are astounding examples for the transiting veterans now. Who else than, young, bright brains are ready to give it back to the society and our own society? Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you, sir. I think like Raja sir and me who have joined this, I'll say juggernaut too early, we have become the expectation milieu for the corporate world while they are judging the veterans while even interviewing, as also in initial 1 or 2 years of corporate transition. So that is something which we and the other people have set the benchmark so high in Amazon. I say the military veteran program, the organization is supporting so well. At the same time, the veterans who are doing there, they're doing outstandingly well. And it is all because of the experience which we have imbibed in our army or maybe the military tenure. However, we have taken off our, as he said, that aura of superiority or invincibility behind, and we started afresh, got our hands dirty and been like a sponge to learn things. So same thing is expected from the veterans who are going in for interviews and transition, where they leverage each and every person, like the recruitment person who is the gateway of for your interview. He will be the person who will be hand holding you like a buddy for initial 3 months. You will always go back to him, Abhishek, I'm in this situation, what should I do? He will obviously will be committed, his equity is there in your role, corporate role over there. So you need to build those relationships and leverage them as you go forward. But at the same time, as he said, that leave that aura behind. We all know that this experience has given us a lot of skills. How you leverage them, how you understand the nuances of outside world and weave them together to create a narrative, which he said in the beginning. That narrative is the most important part, and that will speak for you as times to come. Thank you, sir.
All right. Before we end up, are there any quick questions from the audience?
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, thank you, Raja sir, for the incisive insights that you have given, and truly, your words are worth in gold. I have 3 questions, sir. 2 for Raja sir, and 1 is for maybe Abhishek sir and Raja sir combined. So, Raja sir, 1, you said that we should, get comfortable with numbers. So, to do that, what do you suggest we should do? Some kind of courses, or if not courses, what kind of education we should be aligned towards to get comfortable with numbers, especially in the corporate sector? So the second is, sir, as I look at your profile, you have transitioned from an operations vertical to something to the AI and ML domain, right? So how was the challenge? Was there a challenge in it? And is it easy to do that cross-functional transition within the same organization? So that is what I would like to know, sir.
Super.
And third, sir, third is for both Raja sir and Abhishek sir. There is something known as a Pathways Operation Manager, which I read up, which is attuned towards military veterans and MBAs, so to say. The website says so. So what is this program exactly, sir? I mean, is the Pathways operation manager. How does it channel you? It says that
Okay.
within 5 years, it will get you up to a leadership position or something. So I just wanted to know some perspective about it. That's all from my side, sir.
Okay, thank you, Sabyasachi, for those. I'll go with the first one first, which is about the numerical ability. So there are two parts to this whole number crunching business, right? So one is your ability to generate a set of numbers in an Excel sheet and try and make logical sense out of them in terms of trends, patterns, etc. So for that, you need to get comfortable with Excel. And वो Excel Bible आता है उसमें there are 3 sections. There are total about 6 odd sections. उसमें first 3 you need to do. So you don't need to probably get into macros and all of that, but anything up to pivot tables is good. So basic idea is if you get a set of raw data, you should be able to play around with them and group them, filter them and sort them and try and get some logical sense out of that. So that's the first thing. And this is more from an individual capability perspective of managing and working and manipulating data. The other part, and which is more important for the level at which folks 20 years plus would be entering, this is about looking at data that somebody else has put together and being able to draw interpretations. The data, you may not have put it yourself together. Your Excel skills may not be top notch, but when you look at a set of data, you should be able to spot trends. And that comes by practice. It doesn't come overnight. So if you know, GMAT came up with this new, there's a section called integrated reasoning or something. It came up a couple of years back or maybe 3-4 years back. So the IR section in GMAT typically talks something like this. So when there is a set of numbers presented to you and there are curves presented to you, you should be able to point out those 2 or 3 anomalies, asking the right questions. Hey, why is this dip happening? These two metrics are related like this. Why is it that I see a spike here, but this number should have gone up? Why is it going down? So I think at our levels, these are the skills that you need to be. These will be critical success factors for roles like the kind of ones I'm doing. People will be able to put data together for you, even if you're not 10 on 10 on Excel. But on Excel, you have to be at least a 6 or 7 on 10, because you may not have the luxury to always go to somebody to get the data. But the second part that I mentioned, it is super critical. I'll pause there. Abhishek, you want to add to that?
I think what you said is very important. I see veterans going in for courses, analytical courses, where they're learning about regression, they're learning about trying to Minitab, R, all those things which are not needed. No one is going to hire you for analytical skills, which are it is for an analyst role who are at an entry level or maybe 3 to 5 years experience. People are hiring you for your capability to draw information or inputs from thin air and put them into a story to take a decision. That's what you have been doing in ambiguous situations in combat, in Navy or Air Force while you're flying. So you have been doing that, but at a very, I'll say, qualitative level, not at a quantitative level. Now is the time when you, and actually it's not, I'll say, while transitioning, that doing those mental calculation is something which one should always stay attuned to. Doing those mental calculations, reading some numbers, thinking in numbers, it helps you. I strongly believe if someone is good at mental mathematics, he'll be good at decision making. He'll be faster at taking decisions because he can put all things together, draw insights, and take a decision. So what I did, I can tell simply, while I was transitioning, was maybe I was good at maths, but I started reading economic times. There are a lot of numbers in that. Once you start reading about numbers, when you start relating to it, then you start putting pen to paper and see where you need to practice. But I'll say all those big analytical courses are not needed for Fauji's. It is
absolutely
important is to know basic Excel and how to use data to take decisions. That's
absolutely. Just one last bit, Sabyasachi, before we move to question number 2. Words like sufficient, adequate, substantial, very should just go out of your dictionary.
Okay.
Whenever you say a sentence, you need to have numbers plugged in there. It is 3% higher than last quarter, 3%, 1.2 of which came from this point. See, I told you that everything costs money. So everything kind of comes back to the quantitative assessment of everything. So number crunching is a must-have. That was your first question. I'll
Yes.
jump to the second one. The second one was your question about my own transition from a hardcore warehouse operations role to an AI ML space. Super.
Yes.
So if I had applied for this role sitting outside of Amazon, I wouldn't have got this role. I'll be honest. What Amazon has this beautiful, system in place where leaders are allowed to switch between businesses, and the company has a very strong organizational culture. So the value systems are very, very solid. So what they look for is somebody who brings those cultural values that they're looking for. For example, in my case, have I led that size of team? Am I very strong with developing people? Am I okay with looking at numbers? Now, the other part of your question, where AI or ML, which is the technology part, which is where I assume you're coming from.
Yes.
Now, I'm a techo myself, yeah. So I've been a technical officer in the Navy myself, and although that's not a prerequisite, what it helps you is to understand technology. So my role is not a hardcore tech role. It is an operations role sitting on the fringe of technology. All my internal customers are tech guys. All of them are ML scientists and engineers. But I am an operations guy who is managing. I have to submit so many million, jobs per week. So I have a specific throughput. I have a certain efficiency. So I'm an operations guy still, but I'm working on the fringes of technology. And I know cases where people have jumped from this side to that side as well. So at a very, very senior level, no, the nuances of how software coding is done or tooling is done is not really key. I think the strategic perspective and your ability to sort of put things together, connect the dots, I think those skills come. But for the organization to have that level of trust in you, you need to have, by being baptized by fire, which in my case was 3 years plus in the warehousing space.
Yes, absolutely. So got it.
Wow, thank you so much. Any more questions?
So the last question, Rajesh sir, would you like to answer somewhere about
What was your last question, sir?
So
Besides
last
this, you
question-
said, Abhishek.
about the pathways
Yeah.
program, sir?
So it is basically
okay.
regarding the pathways program, sir, and
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
that's in India, that is available in India. I believe it is, and
Yes. So
whether
I'll
it's
tell
a
you
good
what.
program. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what a pathways program is. Basically, a pathways program is a program which is targeted at tier 1 B schools of the country, and it is aimed at attracting the best talent from those B schools. And the understanding is these guys would be positioned across businesses, and they would be given an accelerated growth path depending on performance. Now, typically IMA, IMB, ISB, those are the campuses I think which are typically part of, there are select campuses. I can get a ready list for you. Now, it's not a military specifically targeted program, but if you happen to be in one of those courses, I know a lot of officers who did that ISB 1 year program. So they also come into the pathways. Now, there is fundamentally no difference between the growth path that a pathways will offer you, or if you go as a lateral entry, it's not like you are at a disadvantage. Uh, they Given that they are part of a program, there is a little bit of a monitoring, there are reviews, there is an investment that the organization has made. These guys typically come at a slightly higher cost, obviously because they're coming from a grade A B school. So उसमें वो लोग थोड़ा monitor करते हैं, but ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि if you are part of pathways you will grow faster. There is nothing like that. And it's a great program, obviously. If you get a chance to be part of it, absolutely.
So basically, sir, as you have brought out, so there is no hindrance to the growth path. So say a person immediately goes into a L6 or L7 job post, quitting, and somebody who's joined the pathways program to get up the ranks, it is the same kind of, both of them are at the same pedestal, right, sir?
I'll answer it in one line. A pathways will not be given preference above you if your performance levels are comparable.
Okay. Got it, sir. Got it. Thanks.
Great. Jahal, any point from you? All right. We need to now close down the shutters. But before we do that, let's analyze and see what really we got. Immense value, a lot of learning. And whether you are a techo guy or operations man or the security fellow, if that fire in the belly, what Rajesh says exists, you will rise. Irrespective of the type of department that you join, but the type of performance you deliver is what will take you up. And more to close down and sum up, I'll request Abhishek to do the yeoman, please.
Thanks. I think the today's discussion was very informative, and I'll say more kicking to the to all of us that we need to leave those shackles of superiority or that entitlement behind and start learning. Just get on the job of learning and understanding more about the nuances of outside world, so that you are more equipped and ready, as we say, battle ready to take on the opportunities in outside world. And I am telling you, the opportunities are huge. I was speaking to someone some around 1 hour back. He said that the job market is very bad. I said the job market is best right now, because coming out of COVID situation, every company is hiring, every company is getting into e-commerce domain, and there's so much of hiring which is going on. There's no dearth of jobs. It is you who is going to, as we say in our Jumbo Consulting, that take a focused sniper approach rather than throwing around your CVs, sending a connection request to everyone. You need to be single, as we say, single-minded pursuit of the goal which you want to achieve, and then put all your energies and actions around it. So thank you, Raja sir, for your time and valuable inputs. I'm sure all of them will help all the veterans who are there on this fireside chat, and also who will look up on our YouTube channel to check out the video. Thanks a lot, Raja sir. Anything you would like to add?
One last bit. Yeah. One last bit, and I'm going to just take 30 seconds. I see a lot of collective energies being spent on social media about how to educate the corporate sector about the value of veterans and कि यार हमारे अंदर इतनी खूबियां हैं और तुम देखते नहीं हो. I'm going to give you a very, and you know what, and there is a lot of bad blood which is sort of expended in the social media space. I'm going to give you a practical situation, right? I'm hiring a level 6 operations manager. For one role that I have, I get 350 or 400 resumes. And I'm giving you ground, this is actual data. Out of that 400 resumes, 300 plus are folks who worked in similar experience profiles in similar industries, who are plug and play as far as I'm concerned. They will be, I'll just get them on board, and in 1 week he'll be up and running. Now contrast this with a veteran for whom I have to handhold for 3 to 6 months. I have to invest in a proper onboarding plan, and then the veteran hopefully will scale to. So there is no love lost for anybody. I mean, they don't love you, they don't hate you. It's a very practical consideration, and we need to be aware. Now, as transitioning veterans, what you can do is, like I said, your profile and your resume should speak to the job description, and that narrative that you build should speak to what the recruiter is looking for or the hiring manager is looking for. The rest of it all is riffraff. Yeah, don't please waste your time, कि हमें educate करना. किसी को कोई educate नहीं करना. There are no charity happening in the world. Every organization exists to make money. If veterans can bring in that money, they will hire you. If you can't bring in that money, they will not hire you. It's as simple as that. Sorry, I'm sounding a little, blunt about this, but that's how it is. So let's not waste our collective energies elsewhere. Just focus on what you can do to make it better. Sorry, Abhishek, I didn't want to hijack this.
No, it's okay, sir. I understand the emotion behind it, and I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn where people say that we have given to the nation, we have done this, we should now, corporate should look for us at a job. And as you rightly said, it's a job for which you need to bring something on the table, and the organization will value for same for that. Nobody is going to hire you because you have carried your body during an endurance run, or you
Correct.
have killed someone.
It's unfair, but that's the way it is. It's unfair, but that's the way it is.
Your leadership capabilities, your software skills, how you can rally your troops to deliver value for the organization. Absolutely. And that's the bottom line.
Right? Even Chanakya did it. The Chanakya has been one of the best employers the world has ever seen. And Chanakya had emotions out of his dictionary. He only had practical aspects to run the state. And what he created was fabulous. So what Amazon is doing is exactly the same what Tatas are doing. And if, as Raja, from Commander Raja, if you've grown, if you've been, you are now admiral in your own sense, it's all because of your own hard work. Yes, let me put it so bluntly and fairly. So if I really have to make a day for myself, I need to be prepared for the corporate as it exists in Kali Yuga today.
Absolutely.
Kali Yuga or the time of Ashoka, they delivered. They created the state, and that's how they were. And tomorrow, if all of us as veterans have to go out, we know the history, we have the experience, we have the will, we have done it in the past, learn, unlearn, and relearn
Absolutely.
the game.
I'll get to see a veteran who struggles. Everybody gets a job. Trust me when I say this. Everybody gets a job. It's only a matter of aage piche thoda time and this that. All of us have the skills. So I mean that's the positive note on which I want to, end this.
Thanks. We're really grateful, Raja. Sincere gratitude to you. Any more points, Abhishek?
So we are done, sir, I think.
Grateful. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. And
Thank you so much.
enjoy yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope this was useful.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.